viewers, listeners.
Good morning. How you doing, Justin?
You know what? I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Good. You're out by the pool today? You're
I'm
a
out by the
fan?
pool. It was like 81 yesterday here in Phoenix, so I'm at virtual pool. I'm very fair skinned, so I've applied a lot of sunscreen, and
Virtual
I'm wearing
sunscreen.
virtual
Right.
sunscreen.
Yeah.
It's expensive. You wouldn't
Yeah.
believe how expensive virtual sunscreen is. But yeah, so you're in Arizona. You're back in Arizona. You came back from Burlington recently,
Yeah, hanging out. Yeah, it was good. It was good.
and
Um,
probably got cold. I'm assuming.
yeah, I love it. I
Oh,
love the cool. I love it. Yeah, no, this is great. It's great to have us both on. I know the past few connection times it was just me or just you. So having us both back on, being able to connect and connect with our guests, and thank everybody that are watching and listening. And we're looking forward to our guest today. And before I bring him on, I just wanted to brag about him and his company. So today we have Ami Kassar, and with MultiFunding, and uh, MultiFunding is an organization that actually has helped Reconciled in the past, and I continue to refer our small business clients and my accounting peers to MultiFunding. They are they're a specialist in the small business lending space and the SBA program space, and Ami and his team have been amazing at helping me and helping my peers and my clients with advice about the whole small business lending process. So we're going to learn more about that, but I just wanted to brag about them and say they do great work. And if you're interested in the small business lending, if you want to know more about getting a new small business loan, buying a business, if you want to know about refinancing, commercial real estate, anything related to lending where you need capital, and even if multi-funding themselves don't do it, they know everybody in the space. They know all the players. They can point you in the right direction. They also know the things to avoid, and also can help prep you and make sure that, hey, here's the advice you need, and also if you shouldn't waste your time yet. If you're not really ready, they're gonna be honest with you. So just wanted to brag about them before I
well,
bring
I've
Ami back.
I've an
Yeah,
intro written for Ami. You
yeah, do
ready?
it. Let's
You
do
ready?
it.
Here we go. He is an in-demand speaker. He is a trusted advisor. He has a national reputation for helping business owners achieve ambitious growth goals through creative and personalized funding solutions. He's the author of The Growth Dilemma. He is an awesome public speaker. Let's welcome Ami to the show.
Hey, Ami.
After that introduction, I'm just going to go home, okay?
Well, he's also an Eagles fan. I see a little Eagles logo down there.
Uh-oh,
So,
uh-oh.
but that's okay. That's okay. It's okay. How are you doing today, Ami?
Better than the Eagles. How are you?
We're doing good. You're in Philly right now, correct?
I am in Philly, in my office in Philly. It's a rare day. I'm home. My wife's still talking to me, even though I've been home for a couple of days, and all is good.
It's like you're on a clock when you're at home, right? It's like, well, I'm
When
2 days
when
in,
are
it's ticking
you,
down.
when are you leaving again?
Well, I saw you at the virtual pool earlier this morning. We just happened to be both virtually at the same spot. So, well, that is awesome, Ami. We're pumped to have you on. We sort of, I do a little research always, and I was fascinated. Guys, he's got a website. You can check that out. We'll link it. Um, but let's just sort of get down. I mean, we want to know all about Ami. We want to know about multi-funding. So let's get into just sort of Ami first. So I saw you went to USC. So tell me a little bit about what brought you to USC. What were your interests sort of heading into USC? Did you know that like sort of that business space is something you were looking to be in?
Yeah, it's interesting because I do have my MBA from USC, and
Mm-hmm.
we were talking a little earlier before the show about experiences in life and ups and
Yeah.
downs and twists and turns and how it doesn't go. I didn't love my MBA. I didn't
Hmm.
love I didn't love my experience. I got out of there as fast as I could.
Yeah.
And maybe shame on me for that. And maybe I didn't take nearly as much advantage of it as I could have. But if I compare my undergraduate experience where I didn't study business at all, and my graduate experience where I studied business, totally different. I don't even know. I mean, I think I graduated. I know I graduated from USC, although I never picked up my diploma. But I don't know any of the grades I got in any of my classes.
Your diploma's in lost and found. They're like,
yeah,
Ami, we're looking for an Ami. So where'd you do your undergrad?
Brandeis University in Boston, and I studied American Studies.
Okay, it sounds like you appreciated undergrad much more.
I think undergrad, at least for me, was a more transformative experience. And I always tell kids, at least my opinion is, at least on the undergrad level, just go study what interests you academically and learn to read and write and think and build social skills. But don't necessarily worry about your undergrad or your degree giving you technical skills that will help you in your career. That's my perspective. I'm sure there are people who disagree with me, but comparing undergrad to grad school, I definitely loved undergrad a lot more.
Yeah, I feel like everyone's getting so specialized now, and they think they need to start. I mean, I have a niece who's in high school. It's like, well, it's time to start, figuring out what you're going to do for the rest of your life. I think that's really good advice because it's like your MBA at USC. If you were way more interested, it wouldn't have felt like it did, I'm sure. So that's great advice, and I feel like college is much more than just classes. So that's an incredible thing. Something you said that I love is you said you're a functional introvert, where you need to sort of rest up to go be able to do your cocktail hour. I think that's fascinating because you're in sort of a very social business space. And also you're an incredible speaker and you relate to people really well. Tell me, how did you figure out you were an introvert, or just sort of built into you? You didn't like being around people, or is it as you got around more people, did you feel like I don't like doing this all the time?
It was a friend who told me that word. I'd never heard it before, but I was explaining to him that I do a lot of public speaking, and it's interesting. It's much more energy in person than online. But when I'm done in a room, and it doesn't matter if there's 20 people there or 1,000 people in there, or if it's half an hour or 3 hours, when I'm done, all I want to do is go crawl under the table and go to sleep. Because it literally sucks every element of energy out of me. Interestingly, I never get nervous before I go on stage. But when I'm done, I'm pulpwood.
Wow. Well, you are engaged, Ami. Watching you speak, you are engaged.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Engaged.
What I've learned oftentimes, like, it's really bad. I mean, I'll do it if I have to. Like, I really hate doing 2 talks one after another because I just don't feel like I give the second audience the same amount of energy as the first. And if there's a break between a talk and like a cocktail hour or a dinner that I have to go to, I will quickly go try find the closest massage place and have a massage.
There you go.
Nice. Very nice.
And just let it all just out of my system before the next one. And that's just who I am. But interestingly, online, and I do a lot of online stuff too, no problem. But what I learned in COVID, because we did so much online stuff, was I would often, before a gig or a presentation or whatever, I would play loud concert, like coming on stage music, everyone getting pumped up for a concert.
Yeah.
I would play it just to try stimulate some of that energy that you get when you, because talking to a screen, and I mean, sometimes there's thousands of people on the other side and you can't see them. And you can't create any connection with them. It sucks. It sucks.
Sounds like you need to have a standby massage therapist at every speaking engagement for yourself.
Yeah, maybe one should travel with me, but I don't think I'm there yet in my career.
You're not at that level yet, huh?
Not yet.
You need a rider. You need like an agent with a rider saying, "Hey, listen, Ami will do this, but he needs a massage therapist, and he's not going to do back-to-back speeches. So this is just what's going to happen."
You're making me sound high maintenance.
No.
I'm really.
You're definitely not high maintenance. I don't think so. I think what you feel is natural. Like
I hope I have a reputation of being one of the most ego-free speakers out there. Like just calm down. Everything's going to be cool. Like there's always something that comes up. Although I actually last year threw my first and only temper tantrum on the speaking chat. You want to hear this story?
Yeah.
Yes, of course I do.
So I flew to Vegas to do a workshop, and I'm not going to say the name of the conference, but
Okay.
I just like had a bit of a funny feeling. And so I went down, I flew in late the night before, and I went down to the room like 2 hours before it started, and there was no audiovisual equipment in there.
Oh, wow.
Right. And I'm like, hi, you guys, where's the AV equipment? Oh, Mr. Kassar, it's coming. I'm like, okay, cool, but here's my cell phone, and if there are any problems, like, please let me know. Oh, no problem. Then I'm still feeling a little weird, so I go down there an hour before the show, and hey, guys, where's my audiovisual equipment? Like, oh, we call your office to tell you we're not going to be providing it.
Your office. That's
Wow.
nice.
And I'm like, wait a second here. And it wasn't like it wasn't available. They just didn't want to pay for it, right? We're in a massive like convention center.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have everything there. Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm like, you guys got two choices. Choice number one is the AV will be here before I start speaking, or choice number two is I'll be on the next plane back to Pennsylvania, and you want a speaker here and a couple hundred people in the room. So decide what you want to do.
So
how'd it go?
It miraculously arrived.
Whoa. I didn't know maybe you were going to be on a plane, giving that speech on the plane.
It just miraculously arrived. I can't imagine why suddenly they were able to get it. I don't know.
That's great. Well, I mean, how did you know? I guess how did you know you wanted to get into small business lending? Like, where did that journey start?
So, like every journey is not a straight line and twists and turns. And before I started MultiFunding, I worked for a credit card company called Advanta, and we were one of the largest issuers of credit cards to small businesses in the United States. And which I got there by accident, so it's not like I planned that. And I landed up as a chief innovation officer, and we completely decimated in the Great Recession.
Ooh, wow.
And 1,000 people lost their jobs, 1 million customers lost their credit, and about $1 billion of market cap was just dissipated.
Wow.
And before it was my turn to be let go, I helped let 960 people go, which was hands down the hardest and toughest professional thing I ever did. Michael, talk about things not going in a straight line. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't a surprise. I got terminated by the bankruptcy trustees on a Friday. And then on my way home, I went to the bank and I deposited a check for my full home equity line of credit. I was worried they would take it away from me. And I started MultiFunding on Saturday.
Wow. Wow. What year was that?
It was, funnily enough, I mean, I guess we're live today. So tomorrow is February 1st, right?
Yeah. Or yeah, two days from now.
2 days from now. 2 days from now is our 14th birthday.
Wow.
So it was about 6 weeks before that I got terminated. So
wow.
So is that like a light bulb moment? So when that happened, and you said you started on a Saturday, were you sort of just in your head all night thinking, I got to do something, we got to figure something out?
I'd been thinking about it for some time. Like it wasn't a shock that we got terminated. Okay. It wasn't like this epiphany of a moment. And so we didn't actually do any work while I was employed, but sort of in the back of our heads. A partner and I, who were no longer partners, he left after a few months, but we started it. And really, what I wanted to do, that core value of what we wanted to do, though we didn't know what the hell we were doing when we started, was that I wanted small business owners and entrepreneurs, when they were making financing choices, to be able to, in a completely transparent manner, understand what they were getting into and the pros and cons of their approach. Because a lot of what was happening in that small rates were going way out of chaos. And my hope is that maybe we could provide a service, almost be an advocate for the entrepreneur or the business owner, and then truly make sure they totally understood what they were getting and how it compared to other options and the pros and cons of the different approaches, and that we were hopefully setting them in the right direction for themselves. Now,
yeah. I feel like that still, like what you describe is still a exception, not the norm, in the small business lending space. The idea of transparency. It totally is, like what you're describing of transparency and empowering the small business owner is the exception, is rare to meet a group like yourselves, like what you're talking about. And most of the industry is still behind these, almost like these quote unquote paywalls. I call it paywall. Like the information is secret, and there's the gatekeepers that are trying to almost block transparency. And I'd love to know why you think that's the case. Why is the industry still behind, behind this wall of hiding and not allowing small business owners to kind of really fully understand everything, unless they come across a service like you who really tries to empower small business owners with information? Why is the industry mired in such, shadowy practices, I guess?
Well, everyone's has their own self-interests, right? So we see it often. We saw it sometimes during recessionary times, where business development officers at banks would keep a client holding on for months and months, knowing well that the likelihood that they would actually help that client were extremely low. But if they could have 20 or 30 files on their desk, it would look like they were busy and they could try to protect their job.
Wow.
Or we see examples of lending, people want to make a living and they have a lending product that their company sells or promotes, and they want to try get as much of that. Money's a product also, so they want to get as much of that sold as they possibly can, irrespective of whether or not that's the right thing for their customer. Or particularly sadly, in the small business space, is there are a lot of predatory lenders out there. Okay. And they make it so simple and so easy and so convincing. And they offer high commissions for people who bring them business. And whether or not they really understand what those products do or don't, it's crazy. So I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about, I won't use a name on this show because I see something on top of the screen that starts with a Q. Okay. But it's outrageous to me. I run a solid, profitable business. And in my accounting software that starts with a Q, I can hit a button and be offered seamless, easy financing that they're going to make it really easy for me, where the rates are probably somewhere on an APR basis between 40 and 60% higher than what I would get from my bank.
Right.
Well, and it's weird because I'm seeing ads like that on Instagram now, where people are like, hey, it's like everything SBA 1099, like just reach out, and next thing you know, you'll get a check from us and we'll take a small fee off the top. And that's a weird thing for me to come across on social media, because it's sort of like, well, this seems like a weird space for you to be offering that broadly to people, with no background. Just like, hey, you give me this paper, I'll give you a check. Like you said, zero transparency. There's nothing behind it really, that they're showing.
I resigned my column from Inc. magazine a year and change ago, after writing for them for 8 years, because they were listing some of these companies as preferred partners that entrepreneurs can't live without.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So it's one thing to say you're a friend of small business.
Yeah.
It's another thing to live the values.
Mm.
You're a friend of small business. Why does a certain accounting company with a multi-gazillion dollar market cap have to make commissions putting businesses in loans that are much higher than they otherwise would have to pay? Because one of the things we see here firsthand is the devastation that bad lending choices can make to entrepreneurs.
Mm.
And because these products, and there's so many of them out there, put entrepreneurs on like short-term treadmills, and then they're really hard to get off until you fall off. And so we always are going to try, as painful as it is, the process can be sometimes, to put an entrepreneur in a product that's going to give them the lowest monthly payment and give them the maximum flexibility to do what they need to do to grow their business.
Yeah, I think we should definitely get into sort of multi-funding now. What's the difference? I mean, what did you see that you thought, well, I need to offer an alternative to what's going on? I mean, what sets you guys apart?
So, I mean, our core value is exactly the same as when we started, but how we deliver it and our expertise in it has increased exponentially. So you could go to our biggest competitor is really a business owner or entrepreneur walking to their bank directly or walking into a financing provider directly and just going through that. And sometimes it works and you can get it done that way. But who's going to advocate for you through the process?
Yeah.
And who's going to help educate you and if there are choices up front, explain them to you and the pros and cons of them. And then who will be there by your side through the process and it will crap happen, right? So, I mean, Michael, you've seen this, like these things don't go, really, do they go in straight lines? So what we want to do, like I was on the phone yesterday with somebody whose business is advising businesses in the SaaS space. Okay. And he had never considered SBA loans for SaaS companies. And he said, I don't get it. There's like 10 or 15 companies that get SaaS companies money really fast and really easy. So why should we consider you? And I had to explain to him the fundamentals of private lending products versus bank lending products versus bank lending products with an SBA guarantee, and how if you can create the flexibility for a client with a lower monthly payment, how that could make a material difference to them.
Oh yeah, it could be a game
changer. A lot of what we do, a lot of what I spend my time doing is education.
So that's the best way to keep them. I mean, I don't think anyone at this point, especially, it's a weird space because if you need the cash, you want it to be fast, right? So you're thinking, well, got to have it now, but sort of can lead to disastrous consequences if you're not educated. And
one of the big things, one of my big passions in life is where I spend a lot of my energy is mentoring entrepreneurs and educating about this stuff. And I remember a story because I don't think I shouldn't say not me. 99 out of 100 companies that maybe didn't go through crazy venture capital or private equity right up front, but 99 out of 100 companies that were built by an entrepreneur owner had several near-death experiences in the first couple of years.
Yeah.
It's just part of the furniture of the experience.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll never forget, it was a couple years in, and it was Wednesday, and rent was due on Friday. And I'm telling you, I had no idea how I was going to pay rent. And I was too proud to call a friend or call my dad and ask for a loan or something. I just had no idea how I was going to pay rent. And I was in one of those emotional, stressed out, nervous stages. And I think every entrepreneur can relate to having some of those in their life. And I was about to apply for one of those get the money in your bank account in 48-hour loans. That makes it so easy, even though I knew it was totally stupid. Okay. And just fortuitously there, a friend of mine, a mentor of mine from LA called me to check in on me. He built his business from nothing, to like 600 or 800 employees. He's like, "Hey, Ami, how you doing, buddy?" And I didn't tell him what I was about to do because he would have killed me. Or something. But I was like, I don't know. I don't know how to pay rent on Friday. I'm not doing too hot. And he started laughing at me. And I'm like, "Arnie, it's really not that funny."
Yeah, it's rent. Come on.
And he said to me, "Didn't they teach you anything at USC?" And I said, "Probably not." And he said, "Come on, Ami, send the check and forget to sign it."
There you go.
Wow.
And I was like, "Huh?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Send the check and forget to sign it. They'll reach out to you next week and you'll be totally apologetic. And will you have the money by then?" I said, "Yeah, I'll expect to have the money by Monday." He's like, "Perfect. And if you don't, send them another check and forget to stamp it." He's like, "That's what you have to do a couple dozen times until you get out of the shit."
That's what they were teaching at USC school, MBA program.
Yeah.
That
was the mentor program.
Yeah.
But if he hadn't called me with that advice, I'd have probably taken that loan. And the APR was around 60 to 80%.
Oh,
wow.
And the repayment was really rapid. And it would have caught up with me. And then I would have had to take another one and another one and another one. And I would have been on a treadmill and it could have killed me.
Yeah.
Not killed me, killed my business. And so that's a big part of the reason that I really am a big favor of mentorship, and I despise those lenders or anyone who promotes them.
I think it's important what you were saying, and you've said it a couple times, that business, like life, is not a straight line, right?
Yeah.
So we have an expectation that, in anything, going grocery shopping, whatever it is, it's not a straight line. And it's the same people. I'm sure your friend in LA who had the 800 employee business, he didn't have a straight line either, right?
It's not a straight line for any of us. Now, could I pick up the phone? Probably the better thing to do would have been to pick up the phone and call my landlord and say, "Hey guys, I'm so sorry. I can't make rent on Friday. I'm going to pay you on Wednesday." And they would have been okay, but I was too scared to do that. Or I didn't even think of that as a possibility. Okay. But the worst thing to do would have been to take a loan at 80%. And people get in those, especially in the first few years, people get into those emotional spots all the time.
Yeah.
And the question is, how do we as a small business community and an entrepreneurial community rally around them and help them through it.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of I think there's a mix of pride, a mix of fear, like you said, a mix of emotion, a mix of not wanting to be embarrassed, a mix of
Totally.
like not wanting to admit I'm not doing so hot. The business isn't the cash flow isn't there yet.
Totally.
You want to portray this image of everything's going great all the time, but the moment you have to call, like you said, just call and admit to yourself, we're all human. We all go through this. We all
Right.
have these near death experiences
Right.
for our business, or even literally, you know, and that it's okay to call and say, hey, I'm a human being and I'm a little short this week, but it'll be there. I just need some adjustments. Can we work this out?
They would have been
And
fine. They would
yeah,
have been fine.
yeah, exactly. You know, and that's what. And you're probably not. You wouldn't have been the first person to call them and say,
No,
I need
no,
4 days.
no way.
Right?
4 days would have been easy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
But I didn't know that back
yeah,
then.
yeah. That's great.
And it's why, it's funny that it works that money is this emotional thing surrounded by crazy, like Michael said, fear, but it's also something that we should be making decisions on without any of that, which essentially seems impossible, right? It's the great conundrum. So how are you guys helping folks through education to sort of be able to make those decisions without without that emotion and fear?
Part of what I'm always advising people, and it's not easy, is just to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like an oxymoron: speed up and grow your business and slow down at the same time.
Yeah, yeah.
But I joke about it, but I say if you go to McDonald's for lunch because you're in a hurry and you rush through the drive-through, you could have indigestion for a few hours, but then you'll be over it.
Mm.
If you make a financing choice in a hurry or without sound counsel,
Yeah.
you could have indigestion for a few years or ruin your business or go bankrupt.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason I watch it because I'm curious, but I don't like the show Shark Tank because Shark Tank teaches our kids that there's really only one way to build a business, which is through equity.
Right.
And in some of the cases on that show, really equity is the only choice. But there are plenty of other cases on that show where the entrepreneur, if they wanted to, could take on debt. The debt comes with different responsibilities. You got to pay it back, and they might put a lien in your house. So, like, I would love on that show for an entrepreneur to have the choice of selling 35% of that company to whoever, Barbara or Mark Cuban or Robert or whatever, and the money's in the bank and that they now have a partner in the business. Or the SBA lender says, you know what, or any lender, I'll give you the money, here are the terms, but I'm going to put a lien in your house. You have control of your business, but if you screw this up, we could take your house. And what do you prefer to do? That would be a much more, I think, educational experience for entrepreneurs and a much more realistic experience for entrepreneurs. That would be, I think, a better source of education.
Yeah, especially since 95, almost 99% of businesses in the country never raise equity funding.
Correct.
Right? They are almost every business in the country, no matter how you define it, whether you include solopreneurs, whether you include independents, all that stuff, no matter how you define it, 90+%, almost 99% are funding their new business with credit cards, retirement loans, retirement funds, savings accounts, friends and family money they borrow, their home equity, but yet there's this huge news and press around raising venture capital, raising angel funding, like you said, going on Shark Tank, making a deal with a famous star, versus wait, all the funding is in your community. The SBA, the beauty of the Small Business Administration and the banking system in the US, it's like none other than in the whole world, in that we've built a system, and the IRS, literally tax system, is built around this as well, to incentivize the creation of new business and the growth of small business.
Totally.
Literally, there's no other place in the world that makes it
Hmm.
as easy. No other place in the world that anybody could go and start and grow a new business, or go buy a business that exists and have very little cash of their own capital to have to do it. That's a very unique system. And even Canadians, they're like, what? You can just go borrow that? Or
Yeah.
people in Mexico, people in other Western countries, they have a much harder path to do it than we have. And yet, the thing that's written about is, like you said, Ami, the Shark Tanks, the equity capital that less than 1% of businesses ever raise and ever return value on, even when they do raise. Very, very few actually end up returning the value of that raise. And so I like that idea of they should be putting somebody like you as a shark that's a lender, right? That's a lender
Yeah.
willing to well, I'll be able to get you that, and you don't have to give up equity or control. And then that's really beautiful.
Well, it's
idea.
funny.
And,
They
and
switched
we
it
wouldn't
up.
be able to do that all the time. There are some
Yeah.
cases there where I would sound the numbers, but we often say, like, it's another thing I think it's important for people to realize is that when you pitch to a lender and you pitch to an investor, it's an entirely different art.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, we're storytellers. We tell stories to lenders. They have to be accurate. We don't lie, but we're putting a picture together. And lenders buy dreams, and no, I'm sorry, investors buy dreams, and lenders manage risk.
Mm.
So you have to be really thoughtful in if you're putting a story together for a lender. It's a very different narration than if you're putting a story together for an investor, and people have to recognize that. Lenders need to be comfortable that they can get paid back. They're very happy to see a 5, 10, 15% growth plan with a clear path to cash flow that you're going to be able to make your payments and pay them back. Investors want to see like a rocket ship.
Right.
And so as you have to business plan for an investor and go, you got to redo that, guys. That's not going to fly here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Since you've been in the lending space now, with your business now for 14 years, and then before that with the prior business that fell apart, that you were a part of, how have you seen the small business lending landscape change and small business capital landscape change kind of in the past, two decades?
I mean, sadly, I think that the financial crisis of 2010 that shut down a lot of companies like Advanta that were providing credit through FDIC regulated banks, and we got chastised because our rates were too high. So knocking that level of lending out of the regulated banking system created all these crazy merchant cash advance short-term online lenders and this unregulated industry that is in fact worse. And I think that the sad thing about efforts to really understand the small business lending marketplace are compounded by difficulty because nobody knows the quantity of loans that are going out through those networks. So people can see and understand SBA loans or bank loans, but no one has a good number about all the private lending that is going out there. That makes it difficult to curate. I do say that, and I mean this, that we are seeing a lot of problems out there now with the $400 or so billion of idle money, economic injury disaster loans that the SBA put out to like 4 million businesses during COVID. And many of them, well, not, I don't think the government realized that half of businesses got hurt in COVID and half of businesses thrived and grew during COVID for unexpected reasons. But they let the money out without any proof of economic injury. And what we see now is suddenly businesses whose balance sheets are artificial and their time horizon and requirement to pay back the loans are artificial because it's 30-year money. And so we're seeing a lot of screwed up balance sheets and instances where people, they got the money without really a plan to use it and wasted it. And now that's time to pay the piper and they're complaining about it. Okay. So you really should not borrow money without a plan and a thesis about what you're going to do with it, and understanding that if it doesn't work out, what bad could happen. And so remember, if your lines of credit are different, lines of credit are there for seasonality, working capital, and emergencies. But term debt should always be borrowed with a thesis about how it's going to help you make more money than you otherwise would without it, and a strong point of view. And then if you're not able to do that, then if it's not going to work out, what bad could happen? Usually something will happen in the middle. I think that one of the biggest frustrations and difficulties for me, and it's the same in our business, is that doing forecasts and projections for small businesses and entrepreneurs is very difficult.
Yeah.
And you guys are in this business. Very few people really understand the drivers of their business model and what makes it move and tick. So building forecasts and projections is also very difficult, but important to try.
Yeah. And it's something that most small business owners don't understand, because
Correct.
they obviously didn't go into finance or study. Most small business owners never studied finance. They are passionate about the product or service that they're providing, and they go into business to sell that, and
Correct.
not have any idea that, I really should understand these basic financial metrics on whether this business is an actual business, whether I'm just selling a product that really isn't a complete business. And in order to successfully get a loan, or to raise capital, to get capital access, you need to be able to articulate, well, what are your unit economic drivers for your business? And so that you, like you said, you could tell that story that mitigates risks for.
Correct. And if your finances and your bookkeeping sucks, or this is where you guys come in, or you're not up to date on your taxes, or this or that, or your P&L and your balance sheet don't match, or there's discrepancies between your tax return and your financial statements, you're going to create red flags for lenders. So people should realize that having good and clean accounting is super duper important. I tell the story in some of my speaking about two pizza shop owners on the New Jersey shore. One of them runs his business with clean books and accounting and has a checkbook for his line of credit sitting in his drawer. Another one doesn't pay taxes. It runs the business out of the shoebox, tries to drive as much cash through it as possible. And then on a Friday in the heat of season, someone's air conditioning blows. Okay. And they need 50 grand to replace it by Monday. The one guy takes out his checkbook. Today is probably going to pay 10% interest on that until he can get it refinanced. Okay. The other guy calls Ami and says, Ami, I need 50 grand by Monday. What's that lender going to smell?
Yeah.
That's going to be close to a 200% APR ask.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
You could tell them to write a check and not sign it too.
I don't know if that would work in that department, but that's the principle of I also say to people, if we went to the basketball game, what's your basketball team down in Arizona? I forget.
The Suns.
We went to the Suns game and the players were cruising around the field with their shoelaces untied. How would you feel?
Pretty nervous.
Not very good. Yeah, that'd be
especially with how old the Suns are. Yeah.
That's great. So yeah, it sounds like Ami that there's going to be quite a few years where the SBA is going to be working through these idle loans, all this money that has been given out
It's a 30-year problem.
Whew, wow.
Because all those loans have liens.
Right.
And so we had a guy call a couple weeks ago. Hey, I need some more money. Okay, cool. Tell us what you did with that idle loan. Oh, I paid off my divorce settlement.
Whoa.
Wow.
So,
okay. Or someone spent $2 million, bought $2 million of crypto with it. Okay. Now those are extreme examples. There are other examples of people that used it or their ERTC money or things like that just to make investments in their business because they wanted to grow. And some of them have worked out, and some of them haven't, and now they're out of it. I mean, it's all over the place, but those are loans. They should not be forgiven. They should be paid back. There's all kinds of problems sometimes with getting those liens subordinated if people need more money. And so what I say to entrepreneurs with those loans is probably one day you're going to need more money. And the first thing the banker is going to ask you when you need that is, what did you do with that money, that idle money? And if your answer is not in line with what the program was intended for, you have a character problem. And assuming you can get through that, the next thing you have to do is go to the SBA and ask for subordination because the new lender is not going to lend you the money without getting a subordination from the government because the new lender is going to insist on being in first lien. And people don't really understand that. They didn't understand it. Now, shame on the government. They gave out the money like it was candy.
Yeah.
Okay. But here we are today.
Yeah.
Can you give me some, just sort of, we're talking about entrepreneurs who could be listening right now. What are some common misconceptions you have to educate people on about the funding space, like in this time we're in right now? Some people say, well, the rates are too high. There's no chance. I'm just going to have to die on the vine here. Is there any misconceptions that you're hearing commonly amongst the people you mentor or the people you're doing business with?
Well, one of the things about rates is that rates right now are part of the furniture of running a business. And it strikes me that 2 years and change ago when Russia invaded Ukraine, I had a planning call with a client or potential client the next day, and they canceled. The world was too crazy now. Russia invaded Ukraine. World War III was about to start. They're not investing in their business.
Wow.
And I can understand that fear. I often have fears about World War III starting, even now with what's going on in the Middle East and around the world. But I'm still investing in my business. And so you could say interest rates are definitely higher, but they might be this way for a very long time. Nobody knows. So if you're going to get stuck and not invest and not grow and not keep going because of interest rates and not accept them, you're going to get stuck. So I look at the higher interest rates as sort of being part of just like, you can't fight higher labor costs if that's what you need, or higher production costs or cost of goods. Money's higher now. It's not fun. No one wishes it. Hopefully it will start to go down this year, but I don't think there's any crystal ball about what's going to happen. I don't believe anyone who says they think they know what's going to happen because we're living in unprecedented times. And so you just kind of got to like roll with the punches in this crazy world we're living in.
And got to keep moving forward, right? You
Correct.
Can't stop because of fear or whatever if you really want your business to grow.
Well, kind of what I say about that is if the world really goes to hell, we're all screwed anyway. So might as well
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. If the zombie apocalypse happens, the SBA is probably not going to be come knocking at your door, right?
How
Yeah.
how has lending how are the lenders in the space, how have they changed in this higher interest rate environment? Are you seeing lenders operate a little differently or evaluate things a little differently? Or is it business as normal as it was a year ago, 2 years ago? Like, how are things a little different from the lender side?
I mean, I think it's business as normal, but in business as normal, deals have to cash flow. And so it's
Right.
harder to get deals to cash flow now because interest is higher. Okay.
Mm.
So you just sort of have to accept that as part of the reality. But we had our business grew 40% last year. And we are expecting, knock on wood, significant growth this year.
Hmm.
And so we're not seeing it slow us down at all.
Wow, that's great.
That's
That's great.
incredible. So, we're sort of speaking about like this sort of government space and like the SBA and sort of the government being involved in forgiving these loans and giving out money like candy. I was interested, you've advised sort of Federal Reserve, White House, Treasury Department, things like that. How does that work? Does like Barack Obama call Ami and say, "Hey, I got a question on something. Can you give me a call back?" I mean, you're obviously, a subject matter expert in this, but how does that work to be approached, by the federal government to sort of speak your insight into these things?
Barack Obama is not on my speed dial, and
Is
nor is Donald Trump. Okay,
Okay.
just to keep it even. Look, I have been from time to time through different administrations being called upon to give input or advice to the Federal Reserve. I was up at Congress a few months ago testifying at the House of Representatives.
Mm.
I used to speak a lot with folks at the Obama White House when they were working on things. And I've been asked a number of times to come and address different Federal Reserve panels and just give my input and insight. I do it all the time graciously and try speak in English and explain to them from my perspective what's going on. It is frustrating sometimes because you put a ton of effort into it and you don't really know if you're making any impact or not. But if that's, in my mind, what we see as part of our responsibility and part of our journey to make things better for entrepreneurship. So anytime we're called up on, and I do a lot of writing, so sometimes they read things or they hear something, and sometimes I'm quite often in the press. And then, of course, I'll stop what I'm doing and do everything I can to help them, knowing well that it's a bit of a wild card if it's ever going to be listened to, but we try.
Mm. We saw I think recently the SBA opened up new licensing for kind of non-banks lenders to be able to issue SBA loans.
Correct.
Where are you seeing that go, and what do you think was the reason of issuing out SBA lending licenses to non-bank actors, more like fintechs and online lenders, to
Yeah.
be able to do that? Why do you think that? Why do you think that happened, and where do you see that going? Is that going to be beneficial to small business owners or detrimental to small business owners?
So the proof will be in the pudding, but you have to look at in my opinion, the overall thing. Not only did they open it up to fintech lenders, but they literally at the same time changed hundreds of rules simultaneously to loosen guardrails to make it easier and faster to get SBA loans and to make it quicker to get SBA loans.
Mm.
And so one day, and we're all still sorting through all this, it's, mark my words, in 2 or 3 years, defaults are going to start to go up. and no one will be able to understand why. Because you change like 300 things at once. There's no control in the science experiment.
Right.
And the story I give about it is, I remember during COVID, I was asked one night to teach an SBA class for a Black entrepreneurship church, a Black entrepreneurship group at a church in Philadelphia. And the slides never came out because the last thing these people needed was money. They needed breakdown information to try and get their really what their needs was. So there was a woman who had an idea, and she was convinced she needed $40,000 to open a kitchen so she could bake desserts, and she wanted to sell those desserts to restaurants that didn't sell desserts. Okay. Maybe that's a great idea. She'd been working for 2 years on trying to get that kitchen. Okay. What I said to her is, respectfully, go find a kitchen and rent it for an hour a day and bake your desserts there, or start baking your desserts in your house and selling it from there. And she had never thought about that before. Okay. Because she didn't have a mentor. The SBA, with these new programs and new rules, wants to make it so easy for her to get that $40,000 so she can just get it quickly. And that, in my opinion, is a big mistake. The guardrails and some of the bureaucracy can be difficult. They can be annoying. They can be frustrating. But so much of it there is to actually designed to protect the borrowers and protect the lenders. And SBA for decades has not cost taxpayers any money. It's been a no subsidy program. And
I did not know that. Wow.
If you start to see subsidies go up, you start to see defaults go up, the program is going to need money, which would be, in my opinion, totally sad.
Yeah.
So it's not that I'm opposed to maybe new lenders getting in. I think that's great. What I am opposed to is the fact that they successfully not only lobbied to get in, but lobbied to make wholesale changes to the program all at once so they could get loans done faster through technology. And we're dealing with taxpayer money, and I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it makes a lot of sense. Well, Ami, this has been great, and for those watching that want to reach out to you directly, want to be able to ask multi-funding questions, what's the best way to reach out to you or to multi-funding?
Any idea? I'm Ami at multifunding.com, or you can find us at multifunding.com. I have a daily blog called Ami Sites. You're welcome to check it out. And it's been a great pleasure to be on the show with you and spend some time with all of you.
Oh, this is great. No, you've provided a lot of resource. Yeah, a lot of information. You've taught both me and Justin a lot of great insights, and also you've helped Reconciled. You helped Reconciled with one of our acquisitions back in late 21, early 22, and when I thought the deal was going to fall through, you came in and helped save the deal, and so thank you so much for all the work you're doing and for the transparency and just living by your values. And I encourage you to reach out to Ami and his team at MultiFunding if you have any questions. They are very, very helpful, and even if you don't know whether you're going to be the right fit for the right business loan, just reach out to them and get their help. And they're definitely ready and willing to help. And big shout out to Fran over at MultiFunding as well, who's on Ami's team and who's been a great help to my peers and myself as well. So thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be with you, and nice to meet you, Justin.